Recently, I've been rewatching the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero gameplay showcase, and I wanted to talk about what I think is really cool on the mechanics and how I think it's a really cool direction that they're going for some of the defensive and offensive kind of things that you can do and the different options that you have. So now talking about some of the different things from the older games, there's always a resource that you kind of had to think about when it came to doing defensive stuff. So sometimes it would deplete your ki. Other times you would have to take one of your like little skill ticks or whatever to use like a defensive barrier and stuff like that. So obviously there was ways that you had to manage a resource, right? But the interesting thing is I feel like they kind of took that with Sparking Zero and kind of amplified it in a way that you make decisions. And it seems like it just seems like such a cool thing, right? So if you want to do something defensively, like you want super armor, you want to do some sort of like parry thing, or you want to be able to like deflect, ki blast, you have to think about how many points you have and how much it's going to affect you if you do that in order to like go into the next fight. Like, are you going to be able to have the defensive points that you need in order to continue the next fight, maybe prevail in it, or are you going to waste it? So I think it's kind of an interesting topic because it kind of gives you an idea of like, you can't just mash defensive stuff, right? So you can't just be like out there in the Wild West constantly like smacking away, you know, ki blast and stuff like that. You have to make an active choice. And I think it makes it very interesting from a competitive standpoint if they are trying to make this game a little bit more competitive than the original series. Because of course the original series really didn't have online. You had to play in like Parsec and stuff like that. So obviously this is going to be the first Budokai Tenkaichi that has like full-on access to online gameplay, and it's going to be somewhat competitive. I imagine some people are going to take it rather seriously. Now, I don't know if they're going to take it as seriously as like Street Fighter and all that different stuff, but you can see the inspiration from those fighting games to try to kind of translate it into this game. So they're trying to kind of put more traditional fighting stuff into making decisions and stuff like that into this. Now, they are kind of playing homage to, like I said, some of the different older stuff that was already in Budokai Tenkaichi. You already had to start making decisions on some of the different resources, and there's a lot of combinations that you kind of had to think about and practice to actually get pretty good at in the original Tenkaichi. So I'm kind of curious to see if they do stuff like that, because obviously we have our vanishes. We have like that nice super guard thing that they kind of recently added, and that nice like kind of get off me type of thing, and then obviously the deflect from like Raging Blast stuff. So it's kind of a mix of some different things that I think are very, very interesting. You also have like that micro dash. So it's kind of a cool way to get in and out of fights, maybe kind of like tease a person a little bit, throw a couple of ki blasts, kind of like play footsies almost. It almost seems like you're playing footsies, right? That's like almost like you're neutral, even though you're flying around and doing different things. Like that kind of like dash back and forth is almost like the neutral to see who's going to go in first and who's going to take that first shot and whether you're going to make it a defensive measure to kind of counter it. And I think this game is opening up for just a really fun time. I think they're knocking it out of the park with some of the different things that they showcase in the gameplay. And I think the fact that they're adding these different mechanisms and different mechanics and stuff like that are already adding to kind of the experience of some of the games that we really like to play. I think this is going to be a fun, I think this is going to be a fun thing to play online. And it's probably going to be somewhat rage inducing, especially if you got a guy that's played a lot of time and they're practicing for a really long time. But I think the defensive measures and kind of like the way that you manage your resources does kind of eliminate a little bit of that gap between a casual and a person that has a lot of time to play, because you're able to kind of at least manage a resource. So if you can out manage a resource versus the person who's really good defensively, at least at that point, you can kind of like narrow the gap a little bit. Now, if this guy is really good at managing resources and really good at the defense stuff, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. And you're probably going to have to practice a little bit and learn some of the ropes. But I think it gives you a little bit of a way to kind of counterbalance that and make it a little bit better to play footsies and kind of get in and out of situations. I like the fact that they're kind of going this way. I think it's very interesting to kind of give, you know, some different defensive measures and stuff like that. I also like the beam clashes. I know a lot of people want to break your sticks and stuff like that. I don't really mind doing the whole, like, you know, going all the way up and trying to mash it at the right time. It kind of feels like that's more the progressive way to not smash your controller. I've seen a couple of people like, you know, mashing like square or circle or whatever. I could definitely see that being kind of a part. Maybe they could have it to where you can pick which way you want to do it. I've seen a lot of older games kind of do that, where you could choose like kind of the way you want to mash or basically win those. But that's going to be very tough. I feel like this is going to be very tough to kind of combat, because if the netcode isn't very good, you're going to be in kind of a world of hurt if you're trying to time those perfectly and you get smashed by a netcode. So I don't know if it's going to be like, you know, it takes it locally, what your input is, and then it kind of applies it to the fight. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do that. I'm not no netcode expert or anything like that, so I'm not 100% sure how that works. But online, I could see that being kind of an issue with that type of stuff. So of course that kind of plays into like vanishes and stuff like that as well, because if you vanish on your screen and then you don't vanish on that screen, then, you know, you're kind of kind of in a pickle there too. I'm curious to see if they change anything offensively. It does seem like they were kind of focusing a little bit on defense in this last gameplay showcase, but I know there's a lot of different things that you could do like kind of offensively in Tenkaichi, the originals. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if they kind of add that, or maybe added some different mechanics and stuff like that. So obviously it does look like some of the different mechanics with, you know, dashing in, going in, That's kind of more offensive, I guess, if you want to play footsies and stuff. And obviously the beam clashes, I guess, would be technically a defense and offense type of thing. But I would say, like, you know, having some different things that you can maybe do, like, you know, stamina breaks or anything like that would be kind of an interesting topic to talk about as well and kind of see. So we'll definitely be covering that kind of stuff. But I wanted to get your guys' input on this, as those are kind of newer mechanics. And I wanted to see if you kind of vibe with those, or you think they're going to be kind of an issue to deal with, especially the beam clash, because I've seen a lot of people talking about how they don't really like it. So I don't know. Personally, I'm okay with it as long as the netcode is good. So that's kind of my take on it. And anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.